In goal 4.3, we are working with 3-term polynomials now. So we went from 2 to 3, and then next couple days later, from now we'll go to 4-term polynomials. When factoring a 3-term polynomial, there are a couple approaches to doing this, but I take the approach of using the reverse of FOIL. Okay? So I talked about how FOIL, when we did it last goal, wasn't super important then, but it's more super important now, the concept of what FOIL means. Okay? So that's the method I'm going to use to factor our trinomials. Our sign rules are really, really important. If you don't know the sign rules, you're not going to get these things to work. Okay? So, sign rules. If the last term is negative, so there's 3 terms, if the last term is negative, then it's automatically one of each sign, positive and negative. If the last term is positive, then you have the same signs. It's either going to be plus plus, or it's going to be minus minus. And you're going to know by looking to the middle term to determine which one. Okay? So I will show that to you as we're going along. Now remember, we're doing the reverse of FOIL. So we're going to end up with a 2-term and a 2-term. Our rules of factoring will apply to this in terms of looking for that common factor and can I factor more. So that's still going to apply just like it did with the squares. Okay? Unfortunately, these are more challenging because there's no set way. All the squares, no, you put this here and here, you put this here and here, and it's plus and minus. You knew what to break them into because there was only one choice. You knew 36 was 6 and 6. You knew 4x squared was 2x and 2x. But now, it's all wide open. Okay, that's not going to be the case. You're not going to know what to put there for sure. It's all trial and error. You try it, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. If it doesn't work, you try something else. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. Okay? It's trial and error. It requires an eraser, a rather large eraser, to do these questions because they're not always going to work the first time through. Okay? I will give you a couple of hints along the way to be helpful. They're sometimes difficult to understand, but so if you get it, it helps eliminate some things. But we'll see how you get that when we get to it. Okay. First question does not have a common factor. So I'm going to go right to my 2 parentheses. First term is x squared. The only choice for x squared is x times x. So that's going to go in the first spots. So I'm thinking FOIL. My last term is positive, which means that my signs have to be the same. Either a plus plus or a minus minus. That tells you what they are. So they're plus plus. My last term is 15. So 15 can be 15 times 1, or 15 can be 5 times 3. I typically choose the one that is not the one with the 1. Okay? So I'm going to go with 5 and 3. Now you notice I haven't even looked at the 8 yet. Haven't even looked at it. You don't look at the 8 until you get everything written down. Now we check if we're correct. How do we know if we're correct? Think about FOIL. First times first, outer times outer, inner times inner, last times last. If you can think back to what FOIL did, the outer times the outer, x times positive 3, and the inner times the inner, positive 5 times positive x, positive 5x, add those together, and you get 8x, which now matches what this is, so I know I'm correct. If they don't match, then you know you're wrong. And I'll make sure I get to some ones that aren't quite, we get it right the first time so you can see what to do. So the 8 doesn't even come into play until you get everything written down. Then you check outer times outer, inner times inner, put them together, and you should get that. If you don't get that, then you're incorrect. You're wrong. Trial and error. Next question. No common factor. So I'm going to go to my x squared first term, x times x, only choice. Positive last term means same sign. Look to the middle. They're both going to be minuses. My last term is 12. 12 could be 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. The more you factor, the better you get at them, and sometimes you start seeing things, okay? I'm going to purposely do this one wrong first just so you can see how this works. So I'm going to go with 6 and 2. And I check to see if I'm right. Outer times outer. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Inner times inner. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. Add that together, and I get a negative 8x. But that's not what I want. I want negative 7. So that's why we use an eraser and have an eraser. So 6 and 2 don't work. So let's go with 4 and 3. Outer times outer, negative 3x. Inner times inner, negative 4x. Put those together, I get my negative 7. So now I'm good. Trial and error. You're going to start seeing a couple things as we go through these that are going to make them quicker for you or maybe even easier. Okay? All right, my next one here, no common factor. So first times first is x squared. My only choice is x and x. Minus last term means one of each sign. And then 12, once again, we gave those options on our last question. 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. We're going to go with 6 and 2. And I check. Outer times outer, negative 2x. Inner times inner, positive 6x. Collect those together, I get 4x, that's what I'm looking for, so I'm right. Okay? You don't have to write these options down, I'm just doing that for notes. And you don't have to do this on paper, although you can. If you can do this part mentally, then go ahead and do it mentally. If you need to do it on paper, do it on paper. Ready?
So you never do like the by itself times 1?
I don't usually try that first. And I don't know why I wrote 12 times 6 on the other
So
option.
it could be that?
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hannah?
On like the second part, like the x minus 2, I thought it was supposed to be like a plus sign because...
No. If the last term is a not minus, then it's one of each sign.
Oh.
So if this is a minus, then it's automatically a plus and a minus. Because that's the only thing that can multiply to give you negative.
But if it's a positive one and there's a negative one, it's like both negatives.
If it's a positive here, then I look here in the middle, because my signs are going to be the same. Then it's 2 negatives. Okay, my next one here. This one's just slightly different because it's got a y at the end, so I want to make sure we cover that. First times first is x squared, so x times x. Minus last term means one of each sign. 6 for my last term. 6 can be 6 times 1. 6 can be 3 times 2. So let's go with 3 and 2. And this one's different because it does have that y squared at the end. So I'm going to have to make sure I get that covered by putting y's with those. And now I check. Inner times inner, positive 3xy. And typically when I'm doing this, I don't even use the variable part. I just go Inner times inner is positive 3. Outer times outer is negative 2. You don't really need the variable part to do this. And I get a positive 1, which is not right. Okay? That's not right. I want a 5. So I'm going to erase my 3 and my 2. And I'm going to go with my 6 and 1. And try it again. So inner times inner is positive 6xy. Outer times outer is negative 1. Add those together, and now I've got my positive 5. Okay, let me say a little bit about these 4. I'm not going to even do the next 2, they're the same kind of question. Okay? You'll notice that none of these have coefficients on the first term. Those are always going to be the simpler questions, the one with not as many options. And you'll also notice, without having to check outer times outer and inner times inner, they just add positive 5 and positive 3 give me positive 8. Positive 6 and negative 2 give me positive 4. Positive 6 and negative 1 give me positive 5. Negative 4 and negative 3 give me negative 7. Okay? That only works when there's not a number with the x squared. Okay? So what happens when there is a number with the x squared? First, we fix the airplane. Yeah, I got it. So what happens when there is a number? Well, it's more erasing. It's more trying, it's more erasing. More trying, more erasing. Okay. No common factor yet, so we're not going to worry about that quite yet. We'll get to that in a minute. First times first is 6x squared. So, I can choose 6 times 1, or I can choose 3 times 2. I like 3 and 2. So I'm going to go with 3x times 2x. My last term is positive, which means my signs are the same. I'm going to look to the middle, and it's going to be plus plus. My last term is 2. Now I'm not looking at this 7. Remember, we don't even look at that yet. My last term is 2. My only choice is 2 times 1. Here's one of the biggest hints I can give you for factoring. Some of you may not understand it. Some of you will understand it. When I go to put my numbers in, I know that I can't have the same 2 numbers in any one parentheses. I can't have a 2 here and a 2 here. Can't do it. It won't work. Never. Okay? Can't have 2 and 2. I couldn't even have 6 and 2. I can't have 2 numbers that share a common factor. Okay? Can't have 2 numbers that share a common factor. So I already know that if I'm choosing this, 3 and 2, that if I'm going to put 2 and 1 now, I got to put the 2 on that one. So you're not going to have the same number in the same parentheses. That helps eliminate some of your choices. That helps eliminate some of your choices and makes it a little bit less time consuming if you know that rule. Okay? But let's see if I'm right. Outer times outer, positive 3 times positive 1 is 3. Inner times inner, positive 2 times positive 2 is positive 4. Add those together, and yes, indeed, I get my 7.